What if I told you that everything you knew about comfort was an illusion? And that Vikings, sleeping on straw, understood warmth better than we do, wrapped up in modern blankets. We reach for our duvets each night without a second thought, trusting in thread counts and synthetic fills, confident that modern industry has perfected the art of staying warm. We have no idea. Somewhere in the northern darkness, more than 1,000 years ago, a culture with no factories, no synthetic fibers, and no central heating engineered a sleeping system so precise, so deliberately layered, that it functioned as the first sleeping bag in history. What they built from the raw materials of their world was not primitive, it was engineered. It was survival distilled into straw and wool and fur. I will reveal the most closely guarded secret of Viking domestic life. Not their ships, not their raids, but the place where they were most vulnerable and most ingenious, their beds. We'll start at the very bottom, with the first layer. But before we get there, we need to feel the world. Those layers were built to resist. Imagine the longhouse, at the edge of January. The walls are turf stacked 3 feet thick, packed with earth and grass roots that trap air the way a modern thermos traps heat, holding a pocket of warmth against temperatures that could drop to 20 below. The roof beams disappear upward, into smoke that never fully escapes, drifting in slow grey curtains above the sleeping platforms. There is no window. The only light comes from the central hearth, a long fire of peat and wood that throws orange shadows across the faces of 20, sometimes 30 people. Family, thralls, guests, all sharing the same breathing, smoky, dark. Outside, the wind comes off the fjord carrying sleet that moves parallel to the ground. The snow does not fall in Norway in January. It attacks. The cold was a predator. These discoveries by historians are shocking everyone. We imagine their nights as an icy nightmare, but the truth is much more complex. The longhouse was not a crude shelter. It was a climate system. The animals sometimes wintered in the far end of the same structure, their body heat radiating through a partition wall, adding degrees to the indoor air that no one would have wasted. The turf walls absorbed ground warmth from below and repelled wind chill from without. The smoke itself, so often imagined as a miserable byproduct, served a purpose. It sounds paradoxical, but that layer of trapped smoke near the ceiling acted as an insulating blanket of warm gas, slowing the escape of heat through the roof structure and simultaneously preserving the timber from rot and infestation. Nothing in a Viking longhouse was accidental. Discomfort was managed. Cold was a problem that demanded a systems-level answer, and the bed was where that answer was most precisely expressed. We'll start at the very bottom, with the first layer, the straw mattress. Families cut sedge grass and cereal straw in autumn, dried it and packed it into ticking made from rough woven linen or hemp. A deep mattress of straw, 6 to 8 inches compressed under body weight, does something that modern foam only imperfectly copies. It traps thousands of tiny pockets of dead air between its hollow stems. Dead air does not conduct heat. It holds it. The body lying on a straw mattress is not touching cold wood or cold earth. It is resting on a continent of insulated air that reflects heat back upward. Straw also flexed and conformed, distributing weight across the sleeping platform in a way that reduced pressure points and kept blood moving through limbs on the coldest nights. It was not a luxury. It was engineering. It was the price of survival. But the main secret was what came next. Above the straw, the Vikings layered wool. Not the soft merino we associate with premium outdoor gear, but a coarser, denser weave called Vadmal, a pressed and fulled wool cloth that the Norse produced in such quantities it functioned as currency. Vadmal, when properly fulled, closes its own weave through the mechanical felting of fibers until the fabric becomes nearly windproof and water-resistant, yet still breathes. It is, in every functional sense, a medieval Gore-Tex membrane. It allowed moisture vapor from the sleeping body to pass outward and escape, preventing the catastrophic dampness that kills warmth faster than any wind. A wet sleeper in a Viking winter did not merely suffer. A wet sleeper in a Viking winter was in genuine danger. The Vadmal layer managed that moisture with a precision we are only now re-engineering in synthetic outdoor fabrics. Although this formed the basis, there were other details that lifted the system from mere adequacy to something close to genius. Above the Vadmal came the animal skins: sheepskin with the fleece still attached, bearskin for the wealthiest households, sealskin in coastal communities. Each brought a different property, but all shared the fundamental quality of natural fur. The guard hairs and dense undercoat created a boundary layer of trapped air so thick and so still that heat simply could not move through it. The fur layer sat on top of the sleeper like a weighted thermal barrier, pressing gently down and sealing the warm pocket built up by the body beneath. Felder, large pieces of cured and softened hide, were often used as an outer shell, their smooth exterior shedding any condensation that formed on the cold surface, keeping the inner layers dry. Their beds were not just a place to sleep, but the last line of defense against the night. In the next chapter, we will finally look under the Viking blanket and examine the layers that governed not just warmth, but the entire social world of the Norse household. Sleep was not private. This is perhaps the hardest thing for a modern mind to absorb. The sleeping platforms that lined the interior walls of the longhouse were communal. Family members slept in rows, bodies pressed together, sharing the thermal mass of multiple sleeping systems stacked and overlapping. A guest extended the hospitality. Of the inner platform closest to the fire was being offered something with real survival value. To give a traveler the warm spot was not a social gesture, it was a life-sustaining act. The bed, in this context, was a social contract. Where you slept told everyone in the longhouse your rank, your relationship to the household, and how safe you were. I never knew a place could feel so much like home, and yet be so ruthlessly organized around the logic of staying alive. The conceptual simulations we use to picture this longhouse aren't just art. They help us rebuild a lost world from fragments of textile and bone and soil. The visualizing tools applied by archaeologists and historians give us access to spaces that no camera ever entered, reconstructing the smell of smoke and sheepskin, and damp wool with the evidence of fibers recovered from bog sites and settlement excavations across Scandinavia and Iceland. Maintenance governed how long that system worked. A sleeping kit that went unwashed and unaired would, within weeks, become a breeding ground for lice, fleas, and the microscopic mites that destroyed both comfort and health. The Norse aired their bedding regularly, carrying the heavy skins and woven layers outside on dry winter days and draping them over fence rails or roof ridges where the cold, dry air and ultraviolet light killed surface parasites. Sphagnum moss, that dense, absorbent bog plant that covers the northern landscape, was sometimes packed beneath and around sleeping areas. Sphagnum is mildly acidic and naturally antimicrobial. It absorbed moisture and suppressed bacterial growth in a way that predates our understanding of germ theory by nearly a millennium. And then there was juniper. The dried branches of common juniper were tucked between layers of bedding and burned, near sleeping areas with a specific seasonal intention. Juniper smoke repels biting insects. Its volatile oils are hostile to the same species that carry disease and destroy sleep. This was not folk superstition. The compounds in juniper, confirmed now by entomologists studying traditional Nordic pest control, demonstrably disrupted the sensory navigation of lice and fleas, making the treated sleeping area effectively invisible to infestation. A digression, perhaps, but one worth pausing on because it reminds us that empirical knowledge does not begin with written science. It begins with observation, repetition, and a very cold night with very itchy consequences. What does any of this mean for us? Modern survival instructors teaching wilderness cold weather camping still reconstruct, almost instinctively, the same layered logic the Norse applied in their longhouses. A ground pad first, to break contact with cold earth. An insulating middle layer for warmth retention. A vapor barrier or water-resistant outer shell to manage moisture. The sleeping bag that every mountaineer and expedition camper relies upon is a compression of exactly this architecture. Straw becoming closed-cell foam, Vadmal becoming synthetic fleece, fur becoming a down-filled outer shell. We did not invent this. We inherited it. We formalized and packaged something that Norse families assembled by hand from the products of their farms and forests. And they did it with a systems understanding of heat and moisture that is, viewed clearly, nothing short of extraordinary. The Vikings did not sleep well despite their circumstances. They slept well because of how completely they understood them. Their beds were engineered artifacts. They were the result of generations of accumulated knowledge about insulation, moisture, social warmth, and biological maintenance. Knowledge that was never written down in any treatise, never formalized in any academy, but passed from parent to child through the act of making a bed each autumn before the first hard frost arrived. The darkness of the Longhouse was not a failure of civilization. It was a deliberate environment, shaped and managed by people who had made a precise and unsentimental peace with the coldest nights in the northern world. Which ancient insulation technique surprised you the most? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more deep dives into the lost secrets of Viking culture every week.